good morning, Chad. I hope you're doing well today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much to this wonderful group of men who's decided to join me this morning. Joe, I hope you're okay if I reach out first to Matt, our guest. Matt, thanks for joining us, man.
Hey,
I knew
hey.
you'd be here, but there was that pit in my stomach, like, when's he coming? How are things down in North Carolina this morning?
Uh, where I am, things are normal, but
Mm,
I can tell you immediately to my west they ain't, and they're gonna
yeah.
get a lot worse.
We'll
Um,
be uh,
we're-
we'll be getting into a lot of that, but we'll also be
yeah,
getting into your a recounting of your harrowing trip home. Uh,
yeah,
so
it was a lot of fun.
I can imagine. Anything for the guests before we get moving on? All
Yeah,
right,
we'll
we'll
dive
get there.
into it.
Yeah, Joe, how are you doing this morning, man?
You know what? I'm good. We had a good bunch of folks out here this weekend, and I actually got to see and handle an old school original Dragonov, the first version. Didn't even
Ooh.
have the pistol grip. It was pretty darn sweet.
That's awesome.
Oh,
And we had some fun. We're getting ready for the Veterans Stand Down this weekend in Libby,
that's right.
Montana, which is going to be good. And you know what? Just because Sibley's probably watching, I got the short story completed. I just have to get it
Oh
submitted
man,
today.
holy
So
cow, that's whoo. All right, things you
I
don't
think y'all are
expect.
gonna like it. It's a pretty adventurous little tale. If you know downtown Detroit, you'll recognize all of the landmarks and all of that. So pretty harrowing tale of a group trying to get out of downtown Detroit. It'll be interesting. So
I'm excited for it. Hunter, how you doing this morning, man?
Good. We wife and I are freshly home from the hospital,
That's what I
having
hear.
having the
Yeah.
baby.
I think
I am.
congratulations are in order. You're a
Thank
father
you.
now for the first time, and
Indeed.
also condolences are in order. I hope you have stocked up on many caffeinated beverages. You will need them. Um,
Indeed. I'm currently doing. We're doing firewatch shifts with the wife, so she can actually get some sleep.
well, congratulations. I
yeah,
think this comes
congrats.
from everybody on the council, man. That's a important step in your life, and we're happy that you've made it and that everybody's healthy and they've got all 10 fingers and toes.
And
So,
that they do. Thank you.
all right. Well, fantastic stuff, guys. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some Hezbollah decapitation and a little bit of not the usual kind of decapitation that's associated with Hezbollah. The good kind. Uh, and then we'll be covering Hurricane Helen. And the atrocious aftermath thereof, and also some potential strategic aftermath that I was unaware of. Turns out there are some pretty interesting supplies that come out of that area and nowhere else. Um, but before we get into that, we've got a few odds and ends that I'm ready to jump into this morning. Gents, I'm taking you over to G Captain first. Are you guys aware that the East and Gulf Coast ports are all about to face imminent shutdown because of a union strike?
Yep.
Joe, you wanna
Happening.
give well either one anybody who wants to take it. Give
Matt's
folks a
probably got
little
a
bit
better
of
view on this. Go ahead, Matt.
yeah. Give people a
Uh,
little taste of what life's gonna be like when the unions are mad.
so the International Longshoremen's Association, yeah, as it says right there, their contract negotiation came up, and they. What's interesting to me about this is they didn't even have any previous negotiation with it. Normally, with when it comes to labor relations, when your contract is coming to be renewed, there will be a period of negotiation prior to that date. Normally, an agreement will be reached. Now, one of the things to keep in mind about this is there's a lot of economics that are going along with it. Um, the There's a lot of reasons that dock owners won't come to the table which is kind of the glass half full here. And it could be that they have a surplus of supplies already sitting that are going to be moved. All right, that need to be moved. The others now that's kind of best case scenario, but I don't think that that's the case here because it's ILA that's putting out all the messaging here and not the other side. So when that happens, usually there's a bigger goal here, and I think I don't know all of the pieces that are at work behind the scenes with ILA. I could speak to United Steelworkers and United Rubber Workers, but not which became USW part of it. But I can't really speak to the wheels in motion with ILA.
Right.
Coming up right on the election is very interesting, and for all the wrong reasons. Right behind this hurricane is also really bad. And Biden this morning, I don't know if anybody saw this, but he was asked about the strikes on Yemen.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We've got
he was
that
asked
video.
about the strikes on Yemen, and he brought up this, and it was very telling. That's what's awesome about dementia patients is they'll tell you exactly what's on their mind. There's nothing.
In fact, let's just jump ahead to that one here real quick. As long as you've brought it up, let's here you go, folks. Your commander-in-chief.
Mr. President, will you deploy more U.S. troops to the Middle East?
Mr. President, has Netanyahu gone too far?
Any comment on the strikes in Yemen, Mr. President?
I'm just saying that they literally just gave him full context. With those 3 setups, you should know what we're talking about, right?
Both sides have got to settle the strike. Working collective bargaining effort, I think they'll settle the strike.
Fuck, bro.
Well, it is defense. They said the word strike.
Fuck, bro. So no, I get you. Is the theory here that ILA sees an opportunity to win one over on both a president who's maybe missing a few screws and a presidential candidate replacing him that's missing all of the screws?
Oh no, she has a single screw in her line.
Famous for that, in fact.
Watch for your mic's doing it again. Oh, I think you got it now. All right.
Yeah. I just want to add that, this is an opportunity. I think that China is playing a big role in this. Again, and that's what I meant by, I don't know the wheels that are in motion behind ILA, but when you see, the bulk of our imports are coming from China. And we know that they own Long Beach Port, right? They own it. The PLA owns it. People's Liberation Army Navy, their logistics arm actually owns the rights to Long Beach Port, right? So they what they're doing is controlling and restricting access here, and so how else do you do that when you've got all these other pieces that are on the table? How do you the anaconda? How does it squeeze just that much tighter? You squeeze the supply line, and that's exactly what's happening here. So now, when you think about this, and again, I don't. This is my hunch. My working hypothesis, if you will. I don't have any direct knowledge of what ILA has going on behind the scenes, but I would imagine with the amount of Chinese goods and ships and services that are being brought in through their hands, that they absolutely, the Chinese government absolutely has its fingers in this. And what better way to cause chaos than to cause a shutdown? It's there you go. I see somebody in the comments saying, fighting automation and more such. Sure. I mean, yeah, that might be at face value, but when you have contract negotiations coming up, which are normally every 4 years, is when organized labor is renegotiated. You pick and choose the times that you go out on strike for a reason. Like USW went out on strike in 1996, obviously in opposition to NAFTA, because this is when the effects of NAFTA were really beginning to be felt. And so and it came right up on the midterm elections. This is, by the way, I have a lot of personal memories around this time. That was Hurricane Fran happened right before that. Very similar to what's going on here, but on a smaller scale, more local scale for us here in North Carolina and in Southern Virginia. And that led to a big shift in Republican politics at the time. So I'm not saying that's necessarily going to happen now, but hopefully it does. Hopefully that's a good outcome. But what I am saying, near term, it's definitely going to be we are, what is the effect here? We're going to see prices increase, and there's absolutely going to be material shortages across, at least across the Southeast, for sure.
Well, and the timing of this, along with the hurricane, I think, in my opinion, it kind of undermines their case, right? Makes them look like the bad guy. Whereas normally they might have come out of this looking like, oh, we're, as Chad has said, we're fighting against automation. We just need bigger wages because of Biden inflation. Like, yeah, that's somewhat understandable. But then this coming on the back of, hey, it's 40, like your ports represent 40% of all containerized goods coming into America. You're right where the hurricane just happened, and you're going to shut everything down.
I want to throw something else out because this is of critical importance, and this kind of dovetails, Hurricane Helene and this perfect storm that has happened across the Southeast, particularly here in North Carolina. I-40 has been washed out. Like the one of the major arteries for bringing in supplies connecting the southeastern region has been washed out. Like, I don't think people really understand the magnitude of what I am telling you right now.
Yeah.
I-40, right at the juncture of the Pigeon River, as you're going into Tennessee, is not there anymore. And the ground underneath it, because that's right on the side of a mountain going across Swannanoa.
It's liquefied, right? Yeah.
It had a landslide. It is gone.
Yeah.
You don't build that. They're not gonna. I mean, I don't want to comment necessarily on highway engineering and all that. That area is constantly under construction and trying to prevent this from happening. By the way, they're not going to rebuild this in 6 months' time. I don't even know if they may have something up and running. Obviously, it's going to take priority. Well, I hope it will take priority. But the messaging coming out of this administration in the wake of all this, I don't know.
Given how little the feds have responded with FEMA and whatnot due to equity reasons, stated or unstated, it's likely
look
going
who
to
lives
be a
there.
long timeline, right?
Give me just a minute. I might actually have some. There we go. So yeah, this is.
Yeah, that's the eastbound lane. That's the eastbound lane, and part of that has collapsed since then. And guess what? We've got more rain coming.
Yeah, this river's just going to keep undercutting this bank. There won't be a space.
Well, I
left
believe
to
now
stand
the westbound lanes are underwater. They haven't washed away, but they are now underwater. And a second storm is coming up now. So it's pretty interesting. Back on the ILA topic, a little homework assignment for the chat. Google Hutchison Port Holdings and look at all the ports that are ran by a company called Hutchison Whampoa, which is a Hong Kong-based company completely and entirely owned by the PLA. And you'll be surprised at how many ports they own. They don't own any in the U.S. under that name. They run them obviously under Dubai Ports Limited and some of the others, but they own the majority of the world's ports, and the ability to just choke off trade is a pretty amazing thing. You'll also find interesting, and we mentioned it when we talk about illegal immigration, that Hutchison Whampoa owns all kinds of ports, beginning with Veracruz, Mexico, and running all the way down through South America, all on the west side of the Americas, which puts it on the east side of the Pacific Ocean.
Weird.
Interesting.
Huh.
Interesting. If I
Interesting.
had a way to build fobs, ports would be the way to do it.
You know, Joe, I just again apropos of absolutely nothing, but I think it would also be funny, just just from a research standpoint, to look up all the ports that all of these fentanyl precursors are currently coming in, and see which which
Yeah.
side of the coast they're on. Weird about that. Might all be owned by the same company.
Yep.
But let's talk. Let's go from one form of death and catastrophe and poisoning to another. Joe, you're the one who brought this to our attention. Why don't you lead us off with the old gas bomb story here?
Well, let's hit the $2 Rumble rant first,
Oh,
then we'll
hold
do that
on
one.
just a second. I got to get over and pull up Rumble, so it'll take me a second to get there.
Well, here, I'll read it if you want to
Oh.
just keep looking for it. It says, Uko Steve, $2. Matt, can traffic be detoured through Cherokee and the Smokies?
Good question.
No. So Jay Clark in the comments said that I-26 has been washed out as well. And I wasn't going to point that out because I-26 is a major artery for traffic, but not necessarily for shipping. And that's what I was talking about. But no, basically that region is almost impassable. There are a lot of windy 2-lane roads that go north-south down from Franklin, North Carolina, and Murphy, North Carolina, down into North Georgia. But you're not bringing any major supplies in that way. That's not an MSR or main supply.
I'm going to make the
assumption
that they probably have those pretty severe per axle weight restrictions on those little windy two road hills. So you can technically move stuff
some of those roads date back to, or some of the bridges date back to the early 1900s, and you're not.
So you can move small box trucks over stuff like that, but you're not moving like the Rocky Mountain friggin' 2-trailer haulers or anything like that.
No, and I want to point some stuff out, and I can talk about my voyage home. I-81, which runs through Virginia and connects to 40 in East Tennessee, right by Pigeon Forge. That suffered a significant amount of damage as well, and that's actually the route I ended up having to take home. And it was bad, but that one took some damage as well. That's kind of the main artery to get into East Tennessee right now that is still intact. I-77, which runs north-south in North Carolina, it runs through Salisbury and Statesville. That one is intact and good to go. So that's kind of a bypass in Western North Carolina. But folks, I'm telling you, I really don't think that America understands, the remainder of the United States outside of this region understands that whole area is effectively landlocked now. There's no way in or out. This is kind of the except by air, and this is kind of the
which is
worst
why
case scenario.
And we will get into that air effort here shortly, because there is effort.
Anyone trying to drive to Matt's house from anywhere west of there will confirm it's virtually impossible to get into on a good day.
yeah. I mean, it ain't an easy traverse to get in here.
Getting up and over Lover's Lane and all that, Lover's Leap and all that stuff.
Lover's Leap, yeah, that's on 58. And 58. One thing too is that Highway 58 coming down off of 81, where you're coming down to Stewart, Virginia, through by way of Galax. That's all under construction now. I don't know, because they're widening it. I don't know what the status of those projects are, but I can tell you it was looking bad when I was driving through there. I have never been so happy to be off of a mountain in my life than when I got off of that highway. And I knew going down there it was going to be that bad, but it was bad.
Well,
I mean, I don't know what the status of it is, whether it washed out or not. And I don't have any desire to go find out.
Hey,
But
you know what? I forgot to ask you this. This is my biggest question about your property and the hurricanes. Did my girl Karen come through okay?
oh yeah, Karen, yeah, oh, she's fine. She's fine. Now we here where I am, we got off extremely light. Uh, so the rain coming in the 3 days prior was actually the worst part of it. We had like 4 or 5 inches, which caused a lot of the destruction that you're seeing because we had so much rain prior. We were watching this when I was out of Missouri. I kept a close eye on it because back in the hurricane season of 2003 and 2004, when I was doing my undergrad at Appalachian State, both of those years were horrible for weather in terms of rainfall. And we got two hurricanes back to back that came up from the Gulf that made landfall and went up through Western North Carolina. And it caused a lot of damage and destruction. But here's the thing is that 6 inches, 8 inches is a whole lot of rain for one night, which is what we got in both of those storms. And it caused an appropriate level of damage. And I knew how bad that was going to be with the flooding and everything and mudslides. It took out part of 321, took out part of 421. I remember 105 going out of Boone was impassable. So there was parts of Banner Elk that was inaccessible for about a month. Um, I knew how bad it was going to be with just the storm that we had just had. But when you're talking about this storm came in, and I want to explain a little bit about hurricanes, is with a hurricane making landfall, a lot of people make a big deal about the wind speed and what category it is and a lot of people, especially like North Carolina, growing up here, as a kid, if it was anything that was below a 3, we didn't pay much attention to it because it seemed like it'd be coastal only event, and houses and everything's built to withstand the wind, so it'll be fine. uh, but here's the thing: the slower the hurricane is when it makes landfall, the slower the wind speed is, usually the more rain is going to come with it, because as it blows itself out, because it's a cold front, it's going to stall out. And when it stalls out, that tropical moisture just ends up reciprocating on itself, and so that moisture engine, essentially, as it's dumping torrential amounts of rain, is going to hang out for a while. So really, the tropical storms and your lower grade hurricanes are actually far worse when you're talking about they come up from the Gulf and they begin to affect Western
Yeah.
North Carolina, because that's when you're going to get your mudslides, and you're going to get all your damage, which is what we see now. Well, that's exactly what happened with Helene. It was still a tropical storm when it made its way up through central Western North Carolina, and then made its western push just north of Asheville, and went up through Boone and Lenoir and Hickory and that area. Um, well, here where I am, we got a lot of rain from it. We had already had a lot of damage from the rain previously, from that front that had stalled out that ended up merging together. Uh, and that created kind of a worst case scenario. But the thing that we had to worry about was the tornadoes. We had 4 pass through here.
Whew.
Literally one hit right after I got home. Uh,
Oh, damn.
yeah, that was. I got a picture of 2 of them. The ones that hit during the day after the storm had already passed through.
Did you
And it
post
was
it on X?
yeah,
I'll find
yeah.
it.
There's a photo of one right down the road from me.
Okay.
That funnel cloud. That one ended up becoming an EF2, by
Ooh.
the way. I didn't, and that's kind of rare for us. We'll get tornadoes in the spring, normally like late March, April, we'll get tornadoes, but they're always kind of weak, like no big deal. Um, it's just not, I mean, what's more annoying is the alerts everybody gets. It's like you kind of roll your eyes at it. It ain't nothing like what they get in Missouri or Iowa, North Texas, Oklahoma. Like nothing like anything like that. But that was it's rare that we see actual funnel clouds on the ground. That's kind of strange. Uh, but after a hurricane, tropical storms, you're going to see those. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Oh, there it is. Uh,
Yep, right behind a tobacco field. Tobacco field and small greenhouse right there, and wood trailer.
I'm just saying, any of
Those
that
aren't
tobacco.
mine.
What's the range right now?
The range on that?
How's your range, Matt? Is it flooded or?
Nah, it's fine. I took another picture of the flooding, the creek that is the eastern or western rather and northern boundary of my property that runs alongside the range. It's roughly 20 feet deep from the bank to the bottom, and it was at it was at flood stage. Um, that's a whole lot of water right there. It didn't jump the banks, which is good. It wouldn't have really mattered for us one way or the other, but we fared all right. Comparatively speaking, we nothing like what's west of here.
Yeah, and
let me tell you from personal experience, that range can flood in a hurry. As we recall, someone's AK being at the bottom of 6 inches of water after about 20 minutes of rain, right?
He's fine. He's well engineered.
Well, it was fine. That water hit quick. I mean, in case anybody's wondering, last year's fighting AK course or fighting carbine course actually.
Carbine course, yeah.
Was we had a storm that was coming up, and I was hoping and praying it was going to hold off till the end of class, and we had like final 2 hours of the course, and this thing came up, and it was one of those heavy, just in the summertime here, you're going to get hit with pretty nasty weather the end of the day. Normally those big humidity storms that'll just pop up. But this thing ended up dumping like 3 inches of rain in no time. And my range, which is a large hayfield that goes, it butts up into some big hills, and all of the water coming off of that. I mean, we went from bone dry out there to all of a sudden we were ankle deep in water, and the drive out of there is not pleasant.
Yeah, it was an interesting ride out. Yeah,
it was bad.
All right. Well, we'll get more into that here in just a minute. And I have to admit, I got a little lost. I'm definitely not looking at buying anything in the near future. Anyways.
Yeah, you're not looking to buy some night vision.
God damn it. I want that so bad. Anyways, but to get into another story, let's talk about gas clouds, and I don't mean the results of a Taco Bell visit. Joe, why don't you lead us into the latest in miscreant activity coming out of Michigan?
So professional shoplifting is getting pretty bad in Michigan, so bad that they've resorted to chemical warfare. Last week on the 26th, a young lad who was trying to steal a whole bunch of stuff was loading up a cart with a bunch of electronics. So in order to get away with it and distract everyone, he set off a chlorine bomb inside the store.
What?
It caused a gaseous cloud, sent 4 people to the hospital as he pushed a cart full of stuff out the side door and got out of there. So this is one of those indicators that I said you are already in the collapse about. This came one day after an IED was set off inside the Santa Barbara courthouse. Oh, that's my girl Stacy right there. Inside the Santa Barbara courthouse. So you are in the collapse. It's just not a Mad Max movie one. So
a chlorine bomb inside of a shopping center of some variety, that just straight up sounds like a terrorist attack. Like,
yes.
Well, they'd like to find the guy. They have not found him yet. And listen, Pinochet, okay, maybe bomb isn't the right word. Let's say device. Is that good with you? You're missing the point here. The point is, this is not normal behavior. People don't set off devices to spew chlorine gas inside of a store.
Well, except for, and I know this is going to sound weird and pedantic, but I promise it's not, except for furries.
No, arguing that the dude didn't actually set off a bomb when he set off what is literally a bomb is pedantic.
Yeah,
But
true. But yeah, no, the last,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Matt.
So it's an exothermic reaction. It's definitely
yes, an
Yeah.
exothermic reaction.
because there's no flames. It's with chemistry 101, endothermic versus exothermic.
And here we have our young future cancer scholar.
Yeah, this guy's really he's just trying to get some stuff to sell for med school. I mean, come on.
What are the term Little Lebowski urban achievers?
I love how he's wearing a shirt that says freedom as he sets off a bomb in the store.
Freedom! Pay for these shits! I'm gonna
All I can hear is Jane's Addiction, been caught stealing. But whatever.
Ooh. All right, folks. Well, we got one more odds and ends, and this is a doozy. Now, look.
Look at how adorable Stacy is. All right.
Hey, sweetie. So here's the deal. This is not a remarkable statement. I hear this statement on the daily. What's remarkable is who this statement is coming from. Ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk warns if Trump is not elected, this will be the last election.
I think your last election actually was when Trump did get elected.
Correct.
He was never supposed to win, and they cheated a little bit and realized they didn't cheat enough to overcome the overwhelming populism. And they say populism like it's a bad thing. Populism just means the will of the people, right? I mean, it's not that bad. But I think that was probably your last semi-free election. You aren't going to have any more. They're going to do anything in their power to make sure he's not going to win.
That's why I was going to say,
I think they tried to kill the man twice, and the media pretends like it didn't happen, and that it's his fault.
Now,
well, yeah, 3 times, but
Joe, I agree with you. I have to point something out. Now, we rightfully point out that Elon Musk is still behind the curve, but what I'm saying is, I'm watching other people catch up, and he's catching up far faster than most.
Well, I think that has to do with his upbringing and roots. He's from South Africa. He has seen this exact thing play out, right? And he knows how it goes, right? He would probably be one of the first people to agree with me that the United States is 18 months behind South Africa. So.
Yeah.
Good God, is that a terrifying statement?
Having just spent the last 2 weeks with the South African and gearing up to go spend another 2 months with that same South African and another one, I'm, no, they see it. Anyways, Matt, any comment before we let the old Musk man go?
No, I mean he's not wrong. But you got to understand with that class of people, with him, Mark Cuban, Bill Gates, so on and so forth. They are competing spheres of power. Wealth begets power, power begets wealth, and politics in totes is an extension of maintaining that economic interest. I think that the more people understand that, because they don't understand that. Most of the American populace has absolutely no idea that is why it works the way it is. We're caught up in the soap opera of it all, but you don't really understand that this is exactly why these things happen, and they're picking teams. This is the reason that you could have people like Tom Steyer, say the obvious lies he's saying. Nobody's ever going to call him on the carpet for it, right? Why Mark Cuban can be utterly just like completely lost in the sauce, everything that he says. And we on the outside of it can say, why in the world would this guy say something that's obviously stupid? he knows that it's stupid. And he knows he's lying to your face. He's playing for the other team because he has an economic interest lined up in it. Tying this all back to Asheville, I'm going to point something out. The single largest landowner that's rapidly buying land in Western North Carolina is Microsoft.
Yeah, you too, huh?
I bet a lot of people did not know that.
What's it?
I didn't know that. And they were making money. If you look at everywhere Microsoft has infested itself,
Yeah.
it makes its money off of putting Democrats in office who now become the insular class. And they begin this at the local-most level. This is exactly what happened to Asheville. This is the reason that Asheville began to have as many Seattleites and Portlandian people coming in and just degenerates. And I'm not making light of the chaos that's happening there at all. But that is what they are. If you've been through Asheville, you know, man, these people are scumbags.
Well, and I'll tell you what. Well, I'll tell you why I suspected that Matt. Would you be surprised to hear who the new Lord and Savior of most of the small farms that are trying to sell out because of water issues is here in Old Potato Land? Well,
BlackRock.
Good Lord Microsoft himself as well. Bill Gates and his various different foundations.
Well, yeah, I believe that Bill Gates is the largest single owner of farmland in the United States now. There's a reason for that. So.
Yeah.
So understand too that one of the largest deposits of lithium in the United States is located under Kings Mountain, here in North Carolina, and the sole main resource for quartz is actually
we will definitely get into that story. So that's we're gonna dangle it out there, chat. That's a teaser. We're gonna get through this next story rather quick because it is just kind of haha.
But the answer is Jewish space lasers.
Yes, always.
Jewish weather machine.
But Matt's I don't want Matt to tip it too heavily, but let's just say that if a certain very small square area of North Carolina has a bad day, and not even a very bad day, just a bad day, no more semiconductors ever.
Yeah. That's actually true. All right.
And they just had their bad day.
So, moving on. Guess who else is having a bad day?
Who? Watcher?
I'll just let you look at a little chart here. From the Israeli, from the IDF, we searched up dismantled on the internet. This picture came up.
Right. You know, remember at the end of Die Hard when the FBI guys die in the helicopter crash, and the one guy goes, "We're going to need some more FBI guys. We're going to need some more Hezbollah guys."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a guy here I'd love to hear from. Matt, do you want to give the obligatory they weren't Baofangs? Please stop.
Some of them were. So they weren't all icons that were detonated. I mean, I said that I broke this down on Colonel Murray's show, and so I was very rudely interrupted by another guest on there. Who's a scumbag grifter of a 501c3 that he stood up, and I hope people don't donate money to that shit. I mean, I called him out. Just, hey, whatever.
Real quick, mods, can we please get a link? Give people a link that people should be going to watch that show.
Nah, that guy, man, he was very rude, very, very rudely interrupting me. And so I left in the middle of it. I didn't want to have anything else to do with him. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. But that so there's a patent. There's actually several of them for the heating of dielectric materials. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about modern battery composition, obviously we know that lithium-ion batteries can cook off, right? when they're exposed to heat. This is actually why, as someone who imports batteries and imports radios, I can tell you, all the hazmat stuff that you got to fill out and special considerations for shipping that you have, and ship stuff, by the way. I have to fill out a lot of paperwork, and had to kind of learn this as I went. Lithium ion batteries can explode. I mean, you have all the warnings there, and it says what can happen, right? If they're exposed to a variety of different things. So what's the common denominator? I mean, I would be willing to believe the story about the pagers detonating if, one piece of the supply line got intercepted, and like this whole Fantasyland story, which I do think is mostly Fantasyland, because there's just too many things, too many variables that have to go right for all that to happen simultaneously. There's another simpler way to do it. You also can't tell me that they magically, all of these radios they handed off were magically going to cook off at the same time. Nah, that's not possible. That doesn't hold any water. There's absolutely no way that you could pull that off, because you're assuming that all those radios are going to be on at the same time. Not only that, the story that happened concurrently to that of solar panels cooking off within the same vicinity, and there were other cell phones that weren't connected to any of this that were cooking off in cell phone shops. What this tells me is that there's been a mountain of research since 1940 on directed energy weapons. We know that this is a thing, and a lot of it's been done in secret, and they were weaponizing that. And they were doing it from aerial platforms. This isn't, and it's not
space laser.
No.
Well, actually, I would say that for that particular, I have to be, for once in a very long time, I have to be semi-careful about what I say. But for that kind of platform, you'd actually want something that moves a little closer to the ground than space.
I was just kidding.
You can do this. You can put directed energy platforms in. I mean, what is a microwave, right? Put
directed energy.
Let's try to do this. Actually, I better not say that. Take a microwave. Take a microwave. Put a lithium-ion battery in it, and hit start. And see what happens.
That's yeah.
So you get the idea, right? This isn't, this isn't exactly what kind of is rocket science, but the principle behind it isn't. That's exactly what they did. You can do that from an aerial platform. Now, you're literally heating the electrical materials that are in there. You've got the lithium-ion batteries that are going to cook off. It's that simple. I've seen radios do this. I saw an emitter battery one time. You drop that on the ground hard enough on a concrete floor, see what it does. Seen it with my own two eyes. Had some guy that claimed he's an electrical engineer somewhere on Twitter. It's like, that doesn't happen. It's not possible. My lying eyes, right? My lying eyes. I guess it didn't happen. I guess I didn't see what I saw and burned my leg, right? I guess that didn't happen. I got a scar from it.
Yeah, well, I mean, from the other side of this, I mean, just take the rest of this out. If you want to see some results of battery explosions, look up the early days of e-cigarettes and how many people lost limbs. 18650s. Surprisingly energetic.
Yeah.
But anyhow, one of the interesting outcomes of this, though, as this article on Zero Hedge points out, this is from somebody on the ground who points out that essentially they've been taken back 1,000 years in communications technologies. The one type of phone that doesn't seem to be affected by this has been iPhones, but that's kind of just like mass iPhones. Who knows? Maybe different battery suppliers or different protection technologies.
So,
but,
I mean,
this
take it back
is
1,000
a basic.
years. Go ahead,
Go
Joe.
ahead. I'm sorry, Hunter.
I'll go if you don't mind. Given that we're talking about the Middle East here, going back 1,000 years in technology, are we really going back that far?
Just about. Well, you're right. I mean, we're not quite to camels. They're at least still allowed motorbikes, right? But apart from that, no. Like like as far as communications technologies goes, you've essentially got like mass transmitters, like AM, FM style radio. Nobody's wanting to touch any other kind of handheld radio, just like like your regular Sony Walkman style radios are about as far as they'll go. And then hand delivered messages.
So if I was about to launch an attack on somebody, the first thing I want to do is make them completely doubt their communications system and make
Yep.
them not want to use it. So this was a pretty solid attack from that perspective, right?
Yup. There's a lot of things about this too, right? Because if you think about the way our communications technology works, even within our military, the larger the battery, the higher up the chain of command you're likely to be. Isn't that weird? Huh. So, fun times are being had by all, gents. Any more commentary before we move off of this onto a related but kind of tangential topic?
Given the nature of today's show, I will take the silver lining.
I will point out in the decimation of Hezbollah that the death of Hassan Nasrallah is long overdue.
Yeah.
That man should have been dead decades ago. And I'm happy to see him go. I don't want to celebrate anyone's death, but that man needed to die.
Yep. I don't know. So I was reading an interesting article, Joe, and I get not wanting to celebrate a man's death, but at the same time, I do wonder if where America maybe started going wrong is the point at which we stopped celebrating the death of evil men.
Well,
Because there was a point at which hangings were a thing that happened in the public square and parties were held.
Yep. Nah. Somebody's evil. They do bad stuff. Whatever. Yeah. That all that touchy feely, let's be compassionate. They ain't got no compassion for you. That's how they ended up where they did.
and you know what? If you want to know whether or not this campaign by Israel is effective or not, ask yourself where the Ayatollah is today. The Ayatollah has vanished. He left the day of the attack, and no one has seen him in public. And the official word is he is at an undisclosed location for his safety. Because the day after Nasrallah died, a helicopter in southern Iran fell out of the sky again. This one
Weird.
containing Iran's top representative to the Houthis. So it's having the desired effect. It's a good thing.
Agreed. Agreed. So this is just something that I kind of found interesting, and the article is on Zero Hedge, so decent source, but they're trying to point out some of comments that Jared Kushner has on Israel being taken out. But an interesting thing that I learned from this, and the reason that I'm even bringing this up is, did you guys know that Trump's daughter married somebody on the other side of the conflict? A Lebanese American billionaire that supports the Palestinians?
No,
I didn't know that.
I could care less about Trump's children because they're not running for office.
I agree. I was like, wow, that must make dinners.
And
awkward.
I really, really could not give two F's what Jared Kushner has to say.
That's why I didn't mention it.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I do have on this, which I thought was great and factual, gents, is that it turns out that Hezbollah's turnover rate has now officially surpassed McDonald's. And
Kamala worked there.
Well, that's where she learned the term "you get it your way."
you know what? You
Oh,
know
wait,
what,
that's
Matt?
Burger King.
I'm going to have to rudely interrupt you and reel that back because I can't spread that kind of disinformation on my show.
She said she worked there.
I know, right?
She did.
Like, somebody pointed out something amazing, which was like, hold on, you're telling me like everybody, stop, everybody in this room, you're a man, think back to your first like high school job, you're 15, 16, decent looking girl, right? You probably at least remember her name, right? And if like less than 20 years later she was running for fucking president, you're telling me you're not going to remember her? You're not going to come out and be like, "Oh yeah, I worked with her. We were on, I was the fry cook. You were the chick who mixed up the shakes and flirted with the dudes in the drive-thru. What up?" You know what I mean? Like nobody remembers her. Right.
I said this about Barack Obama in college, right? Not one college classmate came forward. Not one professor. None. So draw your own conclusions there.
There were people that came out that were speaking to the contrary, in fact.
Yeah. Hey, I was in that class and I don't recall this dude ever having been there. Or I was the professor for that and I don't recall ever having him as a student.
Mm-hmm.
But we digress.
Yeah. So,
Kamala could have worked at Hooters.
Oh, rip Hooters, by the way.
Missed opportunity. She could have been. Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Kamala could have been like, yeah, I worked at Hooters, and I mean, I was just working my way through law school. Yeah, I worked at Hooters, and I stand up for the working women out. That's a missed opportunity.
So I'm gonna interrupt real quick. I don't think that Kamala has a good enough personality to be successful at Hooters. There's no way she could make money as a waitress.
But she could have tossed a salad or two at McDonald's.
Well, hey, gents.
Hooters lately? Have you been to Hooters lately?
Well, no, hold on. So you must not have heard. So you all must not have heard, gents. You're whistling past someone's grave here. Hooters announced bankruptcy. They're gone. There's no such thing as Hooters. That it was just a few days ago. It was literally just a few days ago.
Apparently, no one was really going there for the chicken wings. But
gents,
what happened before they went file for bankruptcy, though? They suddenly changed all of their policies about who could work there and who couldn't.
Yeah,
and when they went woke with the Hooters girls, all of a sudden they went out of money.
Yep.
All right, guys. So I want to welcome Merc to the chat here. Merc is a new. Well, hopefully he's going to be a producer. We were hoping he'd make it this morning just to kind of shadow and see what was going on. But it was just me, and I didn't want to talk to myself while I was making notes. Merc, welcome. We're bringing you on today because I'm hearing that you are potentially helping with our next story here, which is Angry Americans' efforts to do aerial rescue in Black Mountain.
Yeah. So what we're doing is not necessarily rescue. We've got an R-44 Robertson helicopter that we're getting donated for the weekend. We're going to be flying that down to Smith Reynolds Airport, and we're going to be staging down there. One of my best friends is a lineman down there, so he's been giving me sit reps on a lot of the areas and getting people in touch with me because we're going to be down there. Yeah, we're hoping to. We got about $5,000 donated right now. We've requisitioned some food and water primarily, and hoping to be dropping those off to folks in need. So, it's a small effort, but we're trying to do our part.
Hold up. You mentioned something and then you breezed right over it, and I would be an irresponsible show host if I did not say, get me the link to where our people can donate more money.
Copy that. Yeah, so right now we've gotten local chapters. We don't actually have a link for donations. We think about $5,000 turning into food and water is about the max weight that we're actually going to be able to deliver over about a 48-hour period. So that it's just weight constraints and time constraints right now. So we're actually probably not going to be able to do a lot more than that, but we will have a link if we have more opportunities to do this down the road. So.
Excellent. All right, chap. Well, we'll get into this right now, I guess. So who wants to tee up and talk about Angry Americans' effort here?
Let me just say I've ridden in an R-44 or two. It's a good helicopter. A little bit small, but a good helicopter.
It is very good.
Well, gents, who wants to speak to this? Because I was busy when this happened, but I've been.
I'll let Matt, because when I met Angry American, it was in Matt's garage. So.
Yeah, I'm in direct contact with him. He might have just texted me now. But anyhow, he's got his efforts going. This all started out of an urgent rescue that needed to happen in Black Mountain, and we put the feelers out for several rotary wing assets that were private party. Um, as I said in the beginning of the show, I really don't think people outside of this region understand they're isolated. Like there literally is no way to get a adequate number of supplies in, because a lot of the roads have been completely destroyed in places. A lot of the bridges have been washed out. Air is the only way to bring stuff in. It's specifically rotary wing. I haven't heard yet the level of damage to the airports out there. I know Asheville has a pretty sizable airport that is on high ground, but I would imagine its paved runway has sustained damage just from the amount of rainfall that it took. There's a lot of grass runways around there as well that are probably drying out now. So fixed wing is going to be dicey at best, probably for the foreseeable future. But rotary wing is the way to bring a lot of those supplies in. They've conducted a large number of rescues now, utilizing small craft. I know also that early on there were no shortage of volunteers. I'm very happy to say no shortage of volunteers with their own private craft coming to the region on both sides. The FCC, the FAA rather, grounded all of the aircraft, and I know that there was some heat because of that decision, but I understand why that is. To come up with a competent air traffic control plan, you don't want to have a bunch of aircraft all cluttering the same airspace. You need to at least come up with a competent plan on that. But there you go. Watchers pulling up the map. That's giving you an idea. Those are all the main arteries, right? That gives you an idea of just how heavily damaged these roads are. Those are the main arteries, by the way. All of the secondary routes in, they've all sustained just as heavy a damage, if not being completely wiped out. And the main priority is going to be fixing the main arteries in so that they can bring main supplies in. So as of right now, everything is being done at rotary wing. And with Chris there, I'm going to be talking to him immediately following the show and finding out what additional information, what updates that we can push out. I know Merck's on top of that as well. There's other charities that I can personally vouch for that I'm going to be in contact with today, immediately following the show. One of them is Samaritan's Purse, which is headquartered in Boone. Boone was one of the heaviest affected areas, as well as God's Pit Crew, which is a very big, very well-known charity, disaster relief charity here in northern central North Carolina and all up and down south side Virginia. So that's three right there that are going to be needing your support. Here's the thing. The financial support, they need fuel. All right, the aircraft need fuel. That's going to be one of the big things, is not just the logistics behind getting the fuel into the area, but purchasing it. That's going to happen. So they're going to need that financial support, not even for the reimbursement for the pilots and all that stuff, but just to get them in the air and keep them in the air. So we're going to be, I'm going to be posting a lot of that stuff up as I get it, the more information that I can get, that I can gather. And, I'm telling y'all, everything that you can do to help with this is very, very important. It's going to go a long way. I want to spread the word on one other thing too, since we're on the topic, the Tar Heel Emergency Net. Tar Heel Emergency Net on HF. I've had a lot of people ask me about the role that amateur radio is playing in this, and which is a major role. right now, in the absence of communication, conventional communications have been taken out, completely taken out. Cell phone service is non-existent there, and for the handful of scumbags that politicized that and started pointing their fingers at AT&T and Verizon, look, you can't account for the land underneath your cell phone towers being taken out. You
Well,
can't account for that, and that's exactly what's happened here.
more than that too, I assume that any amount of parts that they need to, they're fighting for the exact same helicopter space in that everybody else is for basic supplies.
Exactly. And so here's one thing that I want to share with the audience is and I see a couple of people that are asking, radio towers knocked out. Absolutely, they were. The conventional radio systems were definitely taken out. A few of the radio stations are back on the air, to my knowledge, but when their power systems have failed, they're literally underwater. Their towers are taken down because of landslides. You don't just put that stuff back up. That's not how it works. So, understand that amateur radio emergency service, or ARES, is something that's kind of traditionally taken a back seat in a lot of EOCs. It's something that a lot of emergency coordinators don't take seriously for a lot of reasons. And I'm not glamorizing amateur radio. This isn't an argument one way or the other. I'm just saying that, it's definitely a thing. So here in North Carolina, there's a couple of ways to help. Look up the WCARS, or Western Carolina Amateur Radio Society. Look up their page. Their website last night was down when I pulled it up, but you can pull up their repeater page in Repeater Book, and they have a lot of information through other means. Look them up. Their operating frequencies, and the Tar Heel Emergency Net, which is a nightly net that meets 7:30 p.m. on HF. It is on 3.923 megahertz on 80 meters, and the alternate frequency is 7.232 megahertz. That is a directed net. The net control is on there. They're having a persistent presence right now because of the relief effort. So if you want to get involved in this is a net that meets nightly anyway, as it is for regular practice. But this is something that you definitely need to get involved in. Take all directions from the net control. Be ready to help. If you're an amateur radio operator and you're on HF, there you go.
Let me point out that even if you're not an amateur radio operator, you need no license to listen. And it is a great way to actually get on the ground reports of what is going on that you're not going to see in the news, right? You're going to get actual reports from folks who are in the area. So it's a great way to gather that info. I second that. Is Radio Recon Net up at all or no?
Yeah, we're going to be spinning that up, but not to the detriment of Tar Heel Emergency Net.
Right.
I want to push everybody over there because they're the best equipped to handle this situation. So I feel that this isn't necessarily the time to be trying to clutter the airwaves with something or steal away operators from something that's already equipped to handle it. Tar Heel Emergency Net is where everybody needs to be pushed to on those two frequencies, and you will find operators who are passing that necessary information.
Hey, Watcher, there's a couple of Rumble rants. I want to address the $10 one right away. So, I don't know if you heard me.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, so here we go. Random PNW guy. So what's the 82nd cab doing at Liberty?
So I can't speak for 82nd, but the major in command of the 101st Sustainment Brigade has been incredibly vocal about his lack of orders. He said that I've got assets, I've got helos, I've got supplies. I just don't have orders, and I need some orders. So watch for something bad to happen to the poor major. But he's right. He's sitting here. This is literally his job, and no one has called him to do it. And he wants to get out and help. But absent federal orders, he can't move a single rotor blade. So it might be time to put some pressure on your senators and whatever to maybe get some motion out of Bragg, which we refuse to call it its new name. We're going to call it Bragg. But that guy has been begging for some orders to get in the air, and he has not gotten it yet.
So I want to share something here. So you've got 82nd Combat Aviation Brigade that's at Bragg. You've got 101st Combat Aviation Brigade that's at Fort Campbell on the other side. They're basically equidistant. They could both respond to these disasters. I also want to point out that the Tennessee National Guard was deployed on 26 September, just the other day, right? Just the other day. They deployed these guys where? To Kuwait. And this is a unit, by the way, it's Armored Cav Regiment. This is a unit that would be best equipped to respond to this because they have heavy lift transports. So, you know, and that's a story, by the way, that should be making headlines right now as a scandal, because you know that if the shoe was on the other foot, the mainstream media would be running with that story nonstop, and they're not doing it right now. So I want to point one other thing out. I was on Bragg when 2nd Brigade 82nd responded to the Haiti earthquake, right? Haiti earthquake happens. 10 hours later, they were gone. The whole brigade's gone, deployed to it. Why? I'm dead serious as a heart attack here. Why is it that we can spin up the 82nd to respond to a disaster in another country that ought to damn well be able to take care of itself, that's always traditionally been a basket case? Right? Haiti's always been a basket case. We don't need to take care of Haiti, but they can't do the same for our own citizens. They can't do the same for North Carolina. They can't do the same for upstate South Carolina. They can't spin up those same assets. They're still sitting on their hands. You got to be kidding me. You have to absolutely be kidding me. And this is the thing that infuriates me. And the fact that Roy Cooper hasn't been called on the carpet for this. Nobody in the government infrastructure has been called on the carpet for this. Nobody that I've even heard in the media has even pointed this fact out beside myself, that we can take the 82nd and we can send them to Haiti for disaster relief, but we can't do that on our own shores.
Here's what bothers me about this is that a local base commander is authorized to take action for self-defense of his base with absent any orders. Why is he also not authorized to provide relief absent any orders? He should be able to. And I agree with Matt wholeheartedly. I mean, we'll send dudes to Haiti or Myanmar or some Pacific island at the drop of a hat, but we won't send them to Central North Carolina. Why? I'll be honest, because of who lives there and how they vote.
Facts. Let me get
there was a comment that I made earlier about FEMA's new policy, or maybe not new, FEMA's policies on equity and inclusion. This is directly related to why we're seeing, and this is applicable across other governmental agencies as well. If it's in FEMA, if it's in every other agency we've ever seen, it's definitely going to be part of military, right? This is directly why we're not seeing people called on the carpet. This is directly why we're not seeing people deployed into places where they should be. This is literally their job, literally what they should be doing. It's because of that.
Okay. Well, I need to cover a bunch of other Rumble rants that I had missed. So $20 from Stormy Shores. Hey, all, don't forget to check the links and hit the like button. Stormy, we appreciate you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Another $20 from Ursa Theodorus. Good morning from Combat Corgi's Human.
Good morning, Doc, and good morning to Stella, the Combat Corgi. Stella will be unhappy to hear that Stella's chair of judgment has been removed, by the way.
We've also got a member rant for 25 months. Thank you so much, Phil. We really appreciate you. I had a class at Purdue with Kyle Orton. I remember every time he showed up, the first and last class.
Yeah, that points out the same thing we just talked about with Barack Obama and Kamala Harris.
Yeah. All right. So I think I'm all caught up on that, gents. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Who the hell is Kyle Orton?
I don't know. Wait, hold on. I got to figure this out now. Kyle Orton. Oh, he's a quarterback. I don't do sports ball anymore.
Yeah. Listen, if y'all are going to give us a sports ball reference, you have to tell us because we don't do that anymore.
Sorry, I didn't even mean for that to sound pretentious. I appreciate the heck out of you, Phil. I legitimately I stopped following it, man. Commie ball's not really my thing anymore.
Let's talk hockey.
Sorry, Matt, you're muted.
It's a rigged game, man.
Yeah, there you go. So I want Matt. You've already started to kind of get into it, but why don't you regale us with the tale of your harrowing trip home, and then we'll get into somebody else on the ground here who's shared what it's like out in Nashville at the moment.
So we got a echo.
Oh, let me get rid of that. That's on my end. Bam. Good to go.
So yeah, started my trip Wednesday, and it was pretty smooth sailing. Made it east of Nashville when the weather started. By the time I hit Pigeon Forge, actually, I'd say by the time I hit Crossville, that's when it was starting to get real ugly. By the time I hit Pigeon Forge, I knew that I definitely, my judgment was not wrong on how bad I was thinking it was going to be. And this was late in the day on Thursday. They were beginning to divert traffic off of 40 at that time and ended up taking I-81. 81 was I mean, there were heavy rains. I had pictures that I had put up from the drive where you could, I would say probably visibility was down to less than a quarter of a mile. Saw several semis that were in distress on the side of the road. There were a couple of times where it had been cut down to a single lane. And, it obviously it made the trip significantly longer. But once I picked up 58 coming down the mountain through Galax, that's where it got really dicey, because that whole area of Southside Virginia 58 coming through there is tight on a good day because it's just a 2-lane highway. It's very windy, but at the same time, it serves as a main artery, which is, that's just Virginia. Like Virginia's roads are like that. Virginia has its own. I laugh because Virginia has its own ideas about how it manages roads. And
the coolest part about 58 is you get to go through a town called Brosville.
Brosville. It's Brosville.
No, I call it Brosville because it's cooler to me.
Brosville's got the legendary bologna burger. Like if you go to a middle school football game at Brosville Middle School, and they have the bologna burgers. Like we played a scrimmage game against them, and after the game, like they brought us all these bologna burgers. And it's they are good.
I don't mean this as an insult, but bologna burgers sounds like something Joe Biden would say when he's trying to cut, like, that's bologna burgers,
that's
brother.
A bunch of bologna. No, what you do is you take a whole bologna, right, and you cut it really thick to where it's like a 1/4 inch thick or thicker, and you fry it on a griddle top.
Joe is listening with bated breath right now.
Oh yeah, I'm down.
I'm telling you, it'll change your life in all the wrong ways. When you eat it, you're like,
you know who else makes one like that? Biscuit World. So
it's true. That's where they got the idea. West Virginia literally stole it from Virginia. Like they literally stole it from Southern
Well,
Virginia. They were like, "Hey, that's a good idea. We're gonna steal that, just like we stole our name
well,
when we spun
speaking
it
of
off."
speaking of stealing, let's talk about what's going on in Nashville right now.
So update right now, the biggest problem after Hurricane Helene is just you're not able to move. Some of my friends just try to go to Tennessee. The roads are completely blocked off. You're not getting out. We're trapped in. There's a lot of looters. Please stay safe. Stay inside. If you have a weapon, keep it on you because there are people intentionally sabotaging stuff. So over on I-40, there was some truckers coming in with supplies and medical stuff trying to help us. They stopped at a truck stop to get some rest. When they woke up, their tires were slashed. Nothing was stolen, just tires were slashed. The same thing is happening all over the place. People are intentionally just vandalizing stuff, not stealing, just vandalizing. And then there's looting happening in all the stores. I'll come back with an update in about 5 or 6 hours. Everyone stay safe.
So speaking of that, Matt, I saw on your timeline that you and some various others encountered some, we'll just call them austere religious scholars and other amazing individuals who have essentially decided that the rule of the land is 48 hours after a natural disaster you can start looting.
Oh,
Yeah, 48 hours, and you know, I can say a lot about these people. They say, "Oh, well, it's essential supplies." Well, define that, right? Those are qualitative terms, not quantitative. Um, these are the same people that say, "Oh, it's no big deal. They have insurance," right? Nah, you are stealing from your neighbors when you do it. First of all, if you're stealing, I'm fairly certain. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a biblical scholar, but I'm fairly certain that there's something in the Old Testament about "thou shalt not steal."
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure that's in there. Now, if a business owner comes to you in a time of distress and says, "Hey, look, I got all this stuff in the grocery store or hardware store, whatever. A lot of my produce is going to go to waste. Hey, let's help people." Man, that's
Which
not stealing,
I've
which is
seen that
happening.
happen. I have
Yeah,
seen that happen. I've seen Walmarts literally wheel out barbecues out of the barbecue section, set them up in the
yep.
parking lot, and grill up all the meat before it went bad out of the freezers.
But these sacks of shit that are sitting there saying, "Oh, we're going to steal," so let me tell you something. They're going to steal from you next because these are not people who share the same values that you do, that I do, right? They have no problem stealing from you. They have no problem stealing from anybody else. They're just opportunists. I look at these people as cockroaches. I don't give a shit what anybody thinks about it either. Oh, hey, you shouldn't feel that or whatever. No, I don't care. That's what they are. And at the end of the day, if you're taking it upon yourself to rob others, and we see this a lot, by the way, like I think that the online prepper,
yeah.
survival communities,
Oh
especially on
yeah.
Twitter, is pretty toxic for a lot of reasons. But I mean, it historically has been anyway. But there's a lot of people, you'll see them. Just give them 5 minutes, you'll see them. Oh, well, my plan is to come to your house. Well, that also means my plan is I'm gonna steal from you, right? Now, I don't think so, guy. Nah. And so when they're
No.
doing that, I mean, I fully endorse. I want it to be. I'm gonna say it out loud. I fully endorse. If you loot, we shoot. Period.
Hell
End of
yeah.
story.
Yeah.
You don't
So
steal
if you're
from your
trying to
neighbor.
steal my food, that's an existential threat to me. They'll say, "Oh, this food is worth your life." No, it's not worth your life. That's my food for me. And these people who say this are abdicating their own personal responsibility to be prepared and take care of themselves. They're saying the government should help me, and if they don't, I should be able to steal from whoever I want. That's not how that works, friend. You're responsible for you, and you should have prepared. And Matt already mentioned the online prepper community. For those of you in the online prepper community who post all your cool things about, look at how I hid all these cans of soup behind my wall, all you did was put yourself on somebody's shopping list. You made yourself a target. And for those of you who say, well, I'm just coming to your place, it's going to be a shame for me to have to shoot you and find somewhere to bury you.
Yeah, I will say not to give anything out, but if you were at Ponderosa, you met Pastor Joe Fox, and
If I'm at Ponderosa, I'm just going to leave you on a street and the bear is going to eat you.
yeah, but no. I was meaning if you were at Ponderosa with us this summer, you would have been you would have seen Pastor Joe Fox's presentation and the story about that he told.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Yeah, don't be bringing any of that around here. But we do have another little video here. I'm actually not sure what's in this. Oh, damn.
Yeah, the conditions are very bad in Asheville.
Hot damn, man.
And I saw a little of this in the chat, and I saw a lot of it on Twitter. People say, "Well, isn't it a leftist hotbed? Isn't that an Antifa hotbed?" Listen, man, have a little bit of compassion. Have a little bit of compassion, right? Yes, sure, it is a leftist hotbed. Yeah, sure, there's Antifa people there. That doesn't mean everyone, and that doesn't mean we condone their suffering just because they don't think like we do. That's leftist brain think. We're not like that. We're better than that.
Agreed. This is also remember that that's not the only area affected. There are a bunch of little places like this, which is Chimney Rock area. I'm just gonna let this play because this is wow. Real quick, while we're playing this, $5 from Alpha Charlie Concepts for the Council Coffee Fund would send more, but have to refill all my gas cans for the generator. We sure appreciate you there, Alpha Charlie Concepts, and I'd offer to funnel people to your website, but I bet you're still backlogged. But folks, if you need gear, that's an excellent place to go for it, as long as he's got it available and has time on his machines. Wow. So you want to speak to what Chimney Rock is? This looks like it was probably a vacation community.
Yeah. Chimney Rock, North Carolina, is one of the big vacation areas surrounding Lake Lure, and Lake Lure is absolutely devastated too. The it really isn't a whole lot that needs to be said about it. This community is also, for the survivors, they're pretty much cut off. I don't expect that area is not going to be rebuilt, and this area is adjacent to the French Broad River, so it's not going to be rebuilt anytime soon. They're just in the pictures don't do it justice. By the way, that's some of the footage that's been rolled out. I've seen quite a bit more that I don't care to share. The death toll coming out of this is already in the hundreds. It hasn't been published yet. The mainstream media is kind of keeping things quiet. I can't even begin to say, where this death toll is going to go. I want to make some comments on Asheville. It is backing up, what Joe said a little bit and kind of giving my own interjection here. Asheville, it's inhabited by a lot of people from Seattle. Okay. It's always been kind of a Henry David Thoreau kind of, that end of, I would say, the left end of libertarianism, but it's had a demonstrable left-wing shift in the past 10 years. It's been driven by the tech industry coming in. You can say what you want to about them. I obviously have my thoughts. They're publicly known. But at the same time, when you think about it, some of the best ways to counter that propaganda is through outreach in times of need.
Agreed.
Some of the ways that you counter their recruitment efforts, because you got to understand, Asheville, North Carolina, and I'm very, very familiar with this. Asheville, North Carolina, just like several other communities, coming out of the Appalachians and into the foothills. One of Antifa and specifically John Brown Gun Club, as well as a group called NC Born, which is Building Our Revolution Now, is what it stands for. Their recruitment efforts have centered around needle turn-ins and running free medical clinics, and it's a lot of people on the right don't really understand these concepts or how deep this goes. And it's been a very effective recruiting tool for them, not for necessarily like tactical advantages or whatever. Like on the right, we think of things in like cool guy weapons and gears and all that shit. But they think in terms of how to win over, create a cultural resistance, much, akin to Mao and Che Guevara. That's exactly how they've done that. The way that you counter that is in these times right here, knowing that these people are not capable of fielding that sort of resiliency in times of need, because they're not. They don't have that level of thought or capability. The right does, and we're seeing that. Okay, so this is one of those times where you point out, hey, government assistance isn't there. And not only that, I'm going to point out something else. This is what I pointed out on my own podcast on Radio Contra this morning, immediately preceding the show, is that they have taken this opportunity, DC has taken this opportunity to completely ignore you, because that's what they've done. And look at who's here to hand out our supplies. Look at who's here to help you. Now, you can take that how you will, and I'm sure that some people you're never going to win over. Hey, that's fine. You're never going to win them over. Who cares? But I can, just as I said this morning, I can rest my head knowing that I did everything that I could. You will win over some, however. You absolutely will. And I can also tell you this, that even though Asheville's kind of known for that, especially now, it's known for a lot of the left wing, all those activities. But there's a lot of great people living there too. A lot of great people living there. And you don't get to decide, carte blanche, who gets what aid necessarily when everyone is coming to your door. I really don't think you understand. People really aren't grasping that these people have been, we were talking about in another context, getting thrown back 1,000 years in terms of communications and infrastructure. That literally just happened in Western North Carolina.
Oh, sorry. I'm having allergies. It's harvest season out here, and oh my goodness, I can't go more than a couple minutes without sneezing. I agree with you, and we'll get more into that in just a minute. But before we move on, we mentioned something earlier in the show, and I'd like to get into it now. And I think it's best displayed by. Oh, we lost to Joe. Hopefully he'll come back. It's best displayed by Fossil Locator's post here, in my opinion. How do I express that I'm concerned about the people of West North Carolina, and I'm also concerned about the potential future global economic disaster, because the Spruce Pine Mine is the sole producer of ultrafine quartz for crucibles that all global semiconductor production relies on. Like all global semiconductor production might grind to a halt within 6 months. The entire world's economy depends on spruce pine. Not an exaggeration. Not in the slightest bit. Yeah. Here's something scary, says one veteran of the sector. If you flew over the 2 mines of spruce pine with a crop duster loaded with a very specific particular powder, you could end the world's production of semiconductors and solar panels within 6 months. No high purity quartz means no, I'm not going to try and pronounce that, but a particular type of crucible that they need in order to melt the pure silica to make the wafers that they need to make, which means no monocrystalline silicon wafers, which means, well, the end of the computer chip manufacturing as we know it. We would adapt and find a new process or an alternative source, but it would be a grisly few years. Perhaps this is why those who work in high purity quartz are so jumpy. And hey, guys, guess what's right in the very center of all this flooding and hurricane activity and weird. Matt?
Yeah, one of the things when people keep talking about Taiwan semiconductor is that the silica and quartz used in making those semiconductors in Taiwan came from North Carolina. So that's an important strategic asset that we need to be thinking about.
Yeah, Matt, you how is this area doing? I mean, obviously the road network there tells a story, but do you know where this is at?
But
And
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Um, it so I want to say this. Um, there's been a number of hurdles to strip mining in that area. Uh, both political parties in North Carolina have a vested interest in that, uh, in bringing that industry in. I will say that uh, what we saw last week with the attacks on Lieutenant Governor Robinson, the fabricated story via CNN, uh, that was very clearly fabricated. That's taken a backseat to this, but thankfully, but both political parties, I think that was a coordinated attack on this in particular, or him because of this in particular, because there's a lot of people in Western North Carolina. This would displace a lot of people as well as negatively impact their living environment. Well, there's been a lot of people who have commented, and I agree with them, that the lack of response at the federal level, and it seems like the ball's been dropped, looks a whole lot like Maui and the lack of response to Maui. And looking back on that, a lot of us called it then, pointing out that, hey, who's waiting in the wings to buy up all this property? And they're doing it immediately.
so you let something hang there, and I want to make sure that we're explicit about this. We are saying that the lack of emergency response is deliberate because it forces people to leave and it forces them to sell out at a lower price.
That's right. And I mean, when you get your insurance, now I'm going to tell y'all that this is a region, um, you know, JD Vance pointed it out with his documentary that is on Netflix and his best selling book. But if you're outside of that region, there's a lot of people that really don't understand the level of poverty that's there. And I'm talking about, people who they're lucky to have the trailer they're living in. And I make a lot of off-color jokes about, the trailer hood and, you know, growing up kind of in a rough area and, all that. And it's kind of a coping mechanism for a lot of things for me. But you don't really understand that in that part of North Carolina, Western North Carolina, there's people who are destitutely poor. They don't have anything. And there's a sharp dichotomy between the haves and the have-nots. Your wealthy people, and there always kind of has been, but it's a lot worse now, where you have your resort builders and your people who've bought up all this property from the traditional landowners there, and they forced them off of it slowly but surely, and they've relegated them to service, quote unquote, service economy jobs that pay them just barely minimum wage, if even that. So you have a generational poverty that's been created around that, and this is what they've created. So now, when the insurance companies come in, these people have lost everything they have. The insurance companies come in and they hand them a check. They say, well, your trailer or your ramshackle shack that you were living in was, your 100-year-old house is valued at $60,000. Well, you definitely can't afford to build another one. So what do you do? What do you do at that point? It's the left. Some people on the militant left, and they're not wrong about this, by the way, when they point out gentrification is happening in urban areas, they're not wrong about that. about how it's displacing giant groups of people, because it absolutely is. But this is happening too in other areas. And when you follow the money
Yeah.
here, you begin to look at what the resources that are at stake. I mean, look at the money that was invested in Lahaina, and those people are still begging for help. And the money that was invested there, and how they literally took their land out from under them. They said, because this is what's going to happen. The insurance companies, who are they brokered by? You know, you can't tell me that BlackRock and Vanguard don't have their fingers in all that too, because these are all just big investment firms, right? Everything is just everything's on a ledger book to them, and they're going to come in, they're going to buy up that land. And who do you think they're going to sell it to at 100% profit? They're buying up land for pennies on the dollar, knowing that these people don't have anywhere else to go.
Oh, let
And
let
on the
let me
land,
let me add another thing into that real quick. Not just pennies on the dollar, but it's 0% interest loans directly from the government.
yep. And they'll come up with all kinds of, whatever flowery terms they want to for it. You have to understand these people were hired. The people who are managing this, the politicians that are causing this is something I said yesterday about that mayor of Canton, right? Mayor of Canton, North Carolina. This guy's a scumbag on Pete Buttigieg's page of up and coming leaders. They're grooming these people. This man was hired for a job, and his job was to slowly but surely get rid of the native population there, the people who've been generationally there, so that they could sell it out. They could either sell it out to the tourist industry or they can sell it out to the mining industry, but it's going to be one or the other. They know they've got all this down. And if he does a good enough job moving that train forward, that they'll hire him for his next position. Maybe he'll be because he's a lawyer, maybe he'll be the deputy attorney general, Smathers, Zeb Smathers. I'm putting his name out there. You can look this guy up, right? Looks the part, looks every bit as goofy as his name is. And this is the same guy who, instead of real leadership, instead of saying anything substantial about the good folks of Canton and his efforts in trying to help them out, what did he turn around and say? Well, it's the phone company's fault we don't have any infrastructure. That's all these people know how to do, right? But you got to understand, it's bigger than that. He's there to manage the sale. He's there to manage the displacement. And you're going to see every one of these towns around Asheville that are surrounding it that are going to sell that out. Who wants that lithium out of the ground? Microsoft. They want it. That's the reason they invested in that area. They didn't magically just come there. You don't think Bill Gates and everybody involved in Microsoft just magically said, hey, we're going to move out of Seattle or we're going to go to Asheville, North Carolina. We're going to go to Western North Carolina. They didn't magically just one day do. No, they did environmental surveys. They learned the resources that were under the ground there. And this is a long-term strategy that they put in place. Now, I'm not going all tinfoil hat zone saying like weather modification. I don't have any proof of any of that. Okay. But I will say that when you hear people like Rahm Emanuel, one of his famous quotes years ago, decade ago, saying, when we don't pass up an opportunity or something to that effect, this is exactly what they were talking about. They were just waiting. They were waiting in the wings. And they're going to show up with the checks. They're going to pay these people pennies on the dollar for their property, and then they ain't going to have nowhere else to go.
Yeah, and I know I see some comments in there, but they can't buy your property if it's not for sale. That's really easy to say.
Yeah,
But it's another thing when your family's about to be homeless, they haven't eaten in a week, and a guy shows up with a check for $30,000, right? I mean, it's a
that's
very
one
high
way.
and lofty ideal, but it doesn't work in real life.
Oh no, here's an even more fun part. And I was just looking into this the other day. A couple billionaires decided that they wanted to start a little Gulch style thing out in California where they were making their own thing. They came out and started buying out farmers in a county, and a bunch of other farmers got together and said, "Well, we're not selling." And so the billionaires are taking them to court over and over and over again over collusion, saying you guys getting together and saying that you aren't selling is market fixing, and therefore we can come in and force you to sell.
And these multinational corporations also have the resources to convince a government to just use eminent domain to take your property either way. And they give you what they call fair market value, which is what they want to give you, not a penny more. So again, it's really cool to say that. And Victory Stone nails it. You think you own your property? Try not paying your property tax and see what happens.
Yep. I'm gonna add to that. They can just do a property revaluation.
Yeah,
Which
jack your taxes up.
They did that. So they've done that all up and down through here. Now I got hit with a 40%, 40% property revaluation. Now, I didn't vote for that. I didn't vote for that. Nobody I know did. Why the hell would you do that? But yet they did it. Why? Because they met some bean counter who came from Raleigh, who was also hired for a job, by the way, said, well, we're going to reevaluate the property because we need more income, right? For what? For what? What do you, I mean, and you just determined that my property is magically overnight worth 40% more than what it was because they're trying to price out certain people. That's what they're doing. That's what gentrification is. It's not just an urban thing, right? Normally, when we talk about gentrification, it's in an urban context. It happens in rural areas too. It's happening right before your eyes. This is what they did in Maui. They said, hey, you know, these people that have lived there for generations, well, they're a problem. They won't sell out to us, so we should burn them out.
Matt,
Right?
let me expand on that. Matt, let me expand on that because Maui is a little far out for most people. Hey, do you have a place that you like to go snowboarding? Do you remember when you were a kid and that was owned by a bunch of little mom and pop shops that all set up shop on the mountain, and maybe the ski resort was run by a large corporation locally, but it was generally a local corporation, right? Do you know what's happened to those over the last 20 years? Every single ski resort in America has been bought out by 3 different corporations, and that includes all the little mom and pop shops on the mountain that used to belong to little mom and pop shops. They all get bought out and then used as basically face cover for these giant corporations that force out everybody who's living there. Nobody gets to live in those towns anymore. They all have to commute from down the mountain to get up there. This is like they're hollowing out anywhere that rich people like to play and trying to separate all of us little plebiscites out of those areas.
So, for those of you who've been to Camp Ponderosa, you might have seen all the Save Holland Lake signs along the road up and down there, and that's essentially what that is. It's a local camp, much like Camp Ponderosa, that is sitting alongside of a lake, and the U.S. government is trying to sell it, but the locals don't want the giant corporations, which is who's trying to buy it and turn it into a massive tourist operation where no locals are involved. It's just multinationals. And so they're trying to get some local group to buy it and turn it into something similar to what we have going on here. So there's a big push for that. Corporations buying up all these small local tourist spots to turn them into giant things. Same thing can happen with your house.
So an interesting thing, and this is a statement. Don't know where to go with this, Matt. I'll let you comment on it once I get it out. So, the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency says, while local communities appreciate the volunteer spirit during disasters, please don't send donations that have not been requested by state or local authorities.
Yeah, so I saw this one this morning, and this one struck me as odd. And I know what they're going to try to say is it's because they don't have the capability to get them in there. But it also seems a lot like calling winners and losers, deciding who gets aid and who doesn't.
Sure does.
Listen, man, if you want to subjugate, this is a big thing that I talk about a lot on my website and in my books. If you want to voluntarily subjugate yourself to the government and voluntarily remove your self-sufficiency, go ahead and follow this. But the truth of the matter is this: America was built and founded on by self-sufficient men who helped each other rather than waited for the government to provide handouts. So don't think the government is in charge of what you donate and where. Send what you need to whom you think needs it, and that'll get a lot more accomplished than waiting for the government to stockpile things. Remember the water that rotted on the pier in Puerto Rico while they claimed nothing was ever sent? That's what this is going to turn into. If you listen to the government telling you, "Oh, just send it to us, we'll take care of it." No.
Yeah, there were food, water, MREs that got donated that are still to this day rotting in warehouses near the port facility.
Meanwhile, that socialist chick was up on TV saying Donald Trump didn't send us anything. Completely false.
Um, so yeah, this is a strange statement coming from them. And I agree with you 100%, Joe, on what they're probably trying to say. But I'll just keep it short. Find a recognized charity that is doing work with this. Samaritan's Purse is going to be a real good one. Since they're in the epicenter of this,
Yeah,
they're
they
going to
just
be.
opened a whole relief operation. Yeah.
Yep, they're going to be one of the best equipped to handle this widespread. Get involved with them. You know what? And government, just government in general, has shown its ineptitude repeatedly, and they're doing it again. And I mean, I can sit here and I've already got angry on this show. I got angry on my own podcast this morning. You know, and I'm furious about it. But we could sit here and we could say, you know, but we all knew they were going to do
Yeah.
this. I mean, how many times are they going to do this?
Well,
You know, so here's the thing: get involved with these guys. Get involved. You know, Samaritan's Purse. There's going to be a lot of local ones out there, volunteer organizations. Get involved with them. As far as whatever Tennessee Emergency Management Agency is doing, they're getting their orders from FEMA. There's probably some bean counter at FEMA that told them to say this. I highly doubt that we'll see the same messaging coming from North Carolina, just because North Carolina's response to this at the state level has been a complete shit show at best.
yeah.
At best. And the only person that's putting out any sort of messaging that's in a positive way and giving the people updates is Mark Robinson.
I was going to say Mark Robinson came out with a pretty good statement.
Do y'all
And
know?
he's actually based himself somewhere other than the government. He's working
Yeah,
out
he's
of
at
a sheriff's
Franklin
office.
County, Franklin County Sheriff's Office.
Yeah.
Let
Well,
me
hey,
tell you
gents.
where Josh Stein. Now, I'm gonna say this: where Josh Stein's running for governor right now. He's our current attorney general. You know where he is right now? Anybody know where he is right now?
Oh, wait, hold on.
He took a photo op with Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. Right? You know what they're doing? I'm going to go on and point it out. I'll call a spade a spade. You know what they're doing right now? They're probably managing a fucking business deal, talking about how BlackRock's going to carve all this stuff up. I'm going to go on and say, I'm going to call it what it is. That's
Yeah.
what they're doing. And he's sitting there because they were both, by the way, they got a lot in common. The both of them, aside from the obvious, the both of them were attorneys general of their respective states before they ran for governor, right? And so everything, because you got to understand all their scams, all the stuff that they're going to do, it's all perfectly legal if they say so. You can't be a crime if you don't investigate it, isn't that right? That's exactly what they're doing right now.
Yep.
The plotting. It's what happens behind closed doors. And see, he thought nobody was going to see it. That's out there. So they can make up all their stories about Mark Robinson all they want. And it might stick with a few people. It didn't, thankfully. But we see who's out there, who's doing the real work, and we see who's not. And Roy Cooper, I don't even know what the hell he's doing.
Well, before you cool your jets, let's just get all the government ineptitude out there in the open. We got a statement, gents, from the president.
Yes, it's tragic. As a matter of fact, we're trying to get the exact number. My FEMA advisor is on the ground in Florida right now. There's a distinction between the numbers that FEMA's used and the ones that are used by the locals. So it really is amazing. You saw the photographs. It's stunning.
It's unbelievable.
It really is.
Such a wide area.
And we've given them all everything that we have. We're on the ground ahead of time, so we're working hard.
Are there any more resources the federal government could be giving them?
No, we've given them. We have pre-planned a significant amount of it, even though they didn't ask for it yet. Hadn't.
Huh? Yeah. There's no more resources. We've done everything. There's certainly not an entire airlift capacity sitting on their fucking hands and twiddling their thumbs at the moment or anything like that. Not at all.
I found his use of language somewhat interesting. The words stunning and amazing generally apply to your view of something being good rather
Weird.
than bad.
Right?
I hate to be I hate to go over to the garage at the G camp and put on the tinfoil hat that we have on the wall there, but that really sounds like someone who's pretty happy with the way something turned out, as opposed to someone who is devastated and shocked at the way things have turned out. Just a weird turn of phrase there. So
I think Militant Roots pretty much covers my
yeah.
my feelings on the subject.
Well, I think it's a little ridiculous when you have a federal government stating that they've done everything they can or they pre-planned it, when you have private agency insurance companies already have over 24 dozen contracts for aerial mapping to go basically map that devastation in that area so that they can start getting their checks out already and start, paying off people for the damages. But the federal government still can't make a good statement on that. I don't know. Something doesn't sit right with me.
So what's also weird is that they said they pre-planned for this. How exactly do you pre-plan for a hurricane that you didn't know what direction it was going to go?
Well, actually, I'll our final story here before we leave out is an excellent example of how they appear to have pre-planned from the police chief of Okeechobee. Under the direction of the city ordinance number 1297, adopted by the city council the day before this happened, September 26, 2024, as the city's designated emergency management official, I, Donald Hagan, police chief, hereby declare a local state of emergency within the municipal boundaries of the city of Okeechobee, Florida. 9 a.m. Eastern, September 26, and remain in effect through the 27th. Basically, here's what he wants. Said declaration prohibits the following acts for the duration of the declared state of emergency. No sale or offer of sale with or without consideration of ammunition, guns, or other firearms of any size or description. The intentional display by or in any store or shop of ammunition or guns or other firearms of any size or description, or the intentional possession in a public place of a firearm by any person except a duly authorized law enforcement official or person in military service. Apparently emergency orders trump your Second Amendment, says the police chief of Okeechobee.
This is something that they ran as a test case in the COVID emergency. If I say the word emergency, I can do whatever I want. It doesn't matter. What you should have done at this is laughed in the man's face with your AR-15 in one hand and your shotgun in the other, and then threw this thing in his face. He doesn't get to do this. I don't care what law they passed. That's not how this works. And all that this actually does is encourages looting. If I'm a looter and I come into a town, and guys have gone to my my community security class, Watcher, you were there, you know this is what I say. If guys come into an area to loot and they see that everyone's walking around with a rifle and everyone's walking around with a sidearm, they're going to go somewhere else. They're not going to loot there. This actually does the opposite of what they think it does.
Strong fences make strong neighbors.
Yep.
Weird. I would say this was definitely an example of the sort of pre-planning that our federal authorities have been doing for just such an emergency, Joe.
Yeah, the whole thing is crazy. They did this after Hurricane Katrina. And you know what? I saw a lot of people replying to that saying, oh, but that's only a 9-hour period. If you read the very last line of that, it says, this may be extended if conditions don't improve. So in other words, he set it initially for the 9-hour overnight period and then most likely has extended it as long as he wants. You don't get to tell people they can't carry guns. You don't get to tell people they don't have a freedom of speech.
What did we learn from COVID? There is nothing so permanent as a temporary government program.
Exactly right. Remember, 14 days to slow the spread.
Well, hey, gents, before we go, where do we point the chat? Where can they go to give help? We've already mentioned a few organizations there. Let me try and pull up a link for that. Matt, who did we ultimately decide was the preeminent donation
Samaritan's
avenue?
Purse. Samaritan's
Samaritan's
Purse
Purse.
is going to be one of the big ones
Okay.
that I'll direct people towards. I'm waiting to hear back from Chris. I reached out to him a couple times during the show, and I'm going to post up information as I get it.
Okay.
So you can obviously my handle at Brushbeater NC Scout, but I'm going to be putting up stuff on my site American Partisan as well. We're going to be I'm going to be working on just compiling a list of what different organizations need. I'm going to be making some phone calls immediately following the show um, to uh, to get that figured out and to get that ironed out. But I'm telling y'all, from across the United States, if you haven't seen destruction like this up close and personal, really can't. The pictures aren't really doing it justice. Um, I expect the death toll coming out of this, it's rumored to be in the hundreds already. I will expect that to go higher, unfortunately. And, I'm telling y'all, any amount of help that you can send is going to be critical and at the local most level.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, we appreciate you guys. Keep your eyes peeled to at Brushbeater on X. He'll be sharing further information about where to donate. Gents, we appreciate you for being here as always. Chat, I appreciate you. Without you, the show wouldn't be
Can I make
possible.
one announcement before we go?
Oh, certainly.
I want to remind everyone that this Saturday and Sunday in Libby, Montana, we're having the veteran stand down. Where we're giving out clothes, job counseling. There'll be representatives from the VA there for medical care, mental health evaluations, and more importantly, we're giving out surplus U.S. military winter gear. A problem of the Pacific Northwest is veterans who live in the woods. For every veteran you see on the street, there's 10 more in the woods you don't see. So we're giving out camping gear, sleeping bags, cold weather gear for guys who are going to try to tough it out in the winter. If you know any veterans of the Pacific Northwest, spread the word. I know that the link was already shared in the chat once on my X page. I've got the stand down thing right here out there. Share it around. You never know who's going to see it. We need the right folks to see it. They can also get a hot meal there, and they get to talk to Al, who's just a fantastic guy. I know Matt likes Al. I like Al. Watcher, you like
I
Al.
love Al.
Great people. Oh yeah, Hunter, you've met him too. But great people. Come on out, check this thing out, share it with everyone. I know that at least one person in our chat has already reached out about being a volunteer. We put them in touch with the right people. So come on out and check it out.
All right, folks. And with that, as Scott would say, stay safe.